Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line 3. Mike, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Paddy. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Yes, sir. First, I want to say I love Newfoundland and Labrador, and I'm a protector of the environment. So I like to get that out there, and because that's very important to me. And obviously, it's important to a lot of other people between the news, social media, the phone calls, and everything else. But Paddy, if you don't mind me asking, and I don't want your civic address or nothing, but
you're not getting it.
What part of town do you live in, Paddy?
I'm an East Ender.
You're an East Ender, okay. And you're there for various reasons. You chose to live there because of your own personal choice and stuff. You could have lived anywhere, but you wanted to live down there. Is that correct?
I grew up in the East End.
Okay, well, I'm up in Salmon Line, and I like it up here for my various reasons, and that's where I chose to live. And we have people out in these areas that are being affected by the projects on the Port Peninsula and Codroy Valley and all that stuff. And they chose to live there for their various reasons. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. What point are you trying to make, Mike? Because people will live where they choose to live, or maybe where their job is, or where their family is, or whatever. So, yeah.
That's the point I'm trying to make. And for all of us, for most working Newfoundlanders, one of our biggest investments will be our homes. Would you agree with that?
Does it matter if I agree or not? For the vast majority of people, the biggest equity piece they'll ever own in their life, of course, is their home, yes.
Okay. And no, I'm getting to the point of my story in that here. And you know, that's your biggest asset and everything else. There's a lot put into it. So here is the scenario. And the people on the Avalon got to give compassion to the stories that are coming out, because I'm sure if and we have a lot of business people and a lot of elites that live on the Avalon and stuff, but I'm sure if these projects were planned on Airport Heights, Southlands, up around Dannyland, St. Phillips and stuff and that there would be lawsuits coming out of that yin-yang, especially the way these projects were done, and they were done in secrecy. But and there would be war in St. John's. The lawyers in St. John's would fill up the courts if this was coming 1 kilometre from their homes. And we deserve, these people in these rural areas, they are Newfoundlanders too, and they deserve the exact same respect as we expect for ourselves. You know, I moved up Salmon Line here for a reason. I'm pretty rural up here, and I moved up there because I got a chicken coop, and I got a vegetable garden, and I got a cellar. You know, and I'm surrounded by the beautiful woods and that is here. But I would be out of my mind, if they came behind my house, and put hundreds of 600-foot towers, and we all got to look at that, and why this fears are here, legitimate fears, mental health attacks, waiting for the flatbed to show up with an excavator. This is all very, very real. You know?
Yeah, but who's denying any of that? And plus,
okay, and now
and you say it was done in secrecy. Is that accurate? I mean,
okay. But I want to put. I'm going to give another scenario. If Mike Coos was premier, if I was premier, I want to tell you how this should have played out. If I was the premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, and we had a wind energy moratorium for 15 years, and we were thinking about lifting it. Now, if I was premier, this is what I would have done. There wouldn't have been no actions taken until it was lifted, other than, okay, if we're going to lift this, the first thing we're going to do, if we're going to protect the people of this province, we're going to get wind legislation. There's a couple of provinces in Canada have done it because of bad history and everything else, and we say, okay, so that's the first thing I would do as premier. I would get wind legislation put in place. And then the next thing I would have done as premier, so we're going to get our legislation done if we're considering energy, you know? And, okay, the next thing I'm going to do is, okay, well, the wind energy, what are we going to use it for? Am I going to use it for foreign countries, or when we're going to need power? No. I'm going to use wind energy for Newfoundland. So that will be my next thing, that if I was in government and the 40 MHAs and all the people, code of conducts, transparency, democracy, which all of this flies the face in.
Okay, just let's take this one step at a time. So you're suggesting that when the moratorium was lifted, which people wanted because people were mad when the moratorium was imposed, to be honest with you. So,
and Paddy, let's address that first. It was imposed. The wind energy moratorium was imposed for to go on our grid. That's what it was imposed for. It was imposed for they didn't want projects coming up and backfeeding in the hydro because of Muskrat Falls. Yeah. It was for wind energy for us. That's why it was imposed.
It was wind for anybody. It was a generic wind farm ban, period. So,
okay.
And a lot of that, of course, was to allow for the so-called need to develop on the Churchill River at Muskrat Falls. You're right. But if you're talking about wind for domestic use, so are you suggesting that hydro and the government should build wind if we were going to use, domestic use? Because they're talking about looking around for options to satisfy forecasted demand down the road. So are you suggesting that the hydro and the government should build a wind farm?
Well, that would have been the very first choice I would have made. I wouldn't have entertained anything if I was premier from foreign countries. But if we're going to go green energy, and then I would entertain. If I was premier, the legislation is put in place. We're going to entertain wind energy to backfeed to keep the lights on here ourselves when the Muskrat link goes down because of the towers and everything else. But the next thing I would do was probably what indiscriminate locations we can put them where they don't affect people's lives. And then the very next thing I would do, the next thing is I'd make a public platform and bring in all the stakeholders, the people of the province first, the tourism industry, hospitality, private enterprise, bring it all out on the table. And I would do that, and I will give it a platform, not 30 days. I will give it probably 12 months if I was premier. So now we're armed ourselves, we're intelligent, we're going to protect the people of this province, we're going to protect their homes, their mental health, and the other thing is the 6,000, and I want everybody, the 3,000 matchsticks that they're putting all across Newfoundland affects all of us. 3,600-foot matchsticks. I can give you the failure rates for fire, structure, and everything else, and blade separation, and all that. But if I was premier, and if I had signed the code of conduct, and it meant something to me, the stakeholders and the people of this province would have came first before any shovel went in the ground. Now, is that not good government? Is that not democracy? And is that not... why do we have 40 of them in the House of Assembly if they're not there for us? What are we paying them for? It's insane. And the anger is only building. And I know the House of Assembly done a code of conduct review on Andrew Fury because he is the godfather here. He is the godfather. He's put every 540,000 people in this position. And he's done it illegally, and he's done it through the back doors. And hopefully... What was illegal about it? Well, I'll tell you what his code of conduct, that was in a direct violation. If you don't include the people of this province when you're premier, if you don't include them, so what do we need you for? What was illegal, though? What specifically is illegal about this? Illegal because when the first time he got, if I was premier, and there was a 15-year moratorium on, and the first bit of correspondence I got from World Energy or Germany or Everwind, and the first bit of correspondence that I got as premier is, listen, I can't go behind the backs of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians and discuss anything about wind energy. It's the same thing when the cod moratorium was on, and if we had the premier there giving away millions of or millions of tons of codfish while the cod moratorium's on. How is that any different? Well, it's obviously and demonstrably different. I mean, even look at offshore wind. The amendments aren't even concluded with the amendments of the Atlantic Accord to allow potentially for offshore wind, but yet proponents of offshore wind have been kicking the tires here in conversation with Andrew Parsons and others. It doesn't make it illegal. Like, I don't know what... Something might be unethical or... Okay, Mike, final thoughts to you. Wrap it up. If I was premier... Yes, if you were premier. And the Newfoundlanders went to bed one night, and the next morning they woke up, and 1.6 million hectares public land. They can call it Crown land, but it's public land. Everyone in this province, 540,000 people, owns that 1.6 million hectares. And if it's not illegal, against the code of conduct, you go to bed one morning and you wake up and you read the newspaper, and 1.6 million hectares was gone by the Premier of this province.
But 1.6 million hectares of land is not gone.
Paddy, it is gone. It's been allotted out for wind energy. So we can't be in denial about that, my friend.
But
it is gone.
There's only been 5 proponents. There's only 5 proposals in play, and that does not use 1.6 million hectares of land. It's just the facts of the matter.
But
so
if we had 10 projects, and next thing we don't. If we had 10 projects that sucked up the 1.6 million, then what's to stop them? Like, we have nowhere to go forward here now in this province. We got corrupt government that are not listening to the people. We can go nowhere but further down the hole. Until this is changed, until government listens to the people, until Fury stops this madness, or the RCMP makes them stop it,
Okay, so the same can be said for someone who comes forward with a mine expansion plan, or a new mining player comes to town. So how do you think these things should unfold? I mean, the people have to be listened to. The people's business has to be attended to. People have to come first. I don't think anyone argues those basic points. But, business and doing business with government, I don't know how this constitutes anything illegal. You might think it's unethical. You might think it's shady. You might think it's behind closed doors. It might be done in the shadows, whatever people want to say. But all of those things are a long way from doing something illegal where the RCMP has to step in. That's where I think some of the concerns being brought forward. Maybe people are taking them a step further than reality allows, just to bolster their point. But people can think that this is the worst government of all time, but the whole issue regarding illegal is a different kettle of fish, isn't it?
But Paddy, the enormity of this, taking 40 hectares for a sod farm is one thing, but 1.6 million hectares is crazy, and the enormity of it is what makes it a crime. This was 4 projects. Like, the Newfoundlanders go to bed and wake up and we got 4 hydrogen projects. We're going to be storing hundreds of thousands of cubic meters of ammonia in our communities. People's phones will have to be put on an alert database if there's a catastrophic release. And it's like the people in Stephenville may think this is great, but as the peels of the onion come off and they realise that they got to keep the cell phone with them all the time, because if that plant has a failure, that could go up to 20 miles. And this is how serious this is.
Mike, I appreciate your time. I'm late for the news, but I do appreciate you calling back to the show today.
And Paddy, maybe sometimes I don't say it, but I hope VOCM and yourself and that deal, there's not a lot of places to go. There's a lot of crippled media and stuff. And I want to thank you and VOCM. And this is a very serious matter, and it deserves for all the voices to get out there. And I hope VOCM will continue to do such a good job to let the people speak out.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Paddy.
All the best. See you, Mike.